Hi everyone. Today we are going to explore a powerful piece of literary nonfiction that is written by Joanne Beard. It is titled The Fourth State of Matter. Yes. What is the fourth state of matter? Plasma. Plasma is a state of matter where gas is energized to the point that its atoms break apart. So it's different from other three states of matter like solids, liquids, and gases, and it is often seen in things like lightning and or the sun. So the fourth state of matter is an essay that blends personal memoir, poetic language, and journalistic reportage in a very emotionally impactful way. As we go through, I'll help you understand both the content and the craft, how the story is told, and why it is so effective. So, without wasting any time, let's directly move into the summary. So, let's begin with a detailed overview of the piece. So, this is a memoir where Bayard reflects on a devastating period in her life. So she is dealing with multiple losses. First of all, her dying dog Collie, who has been her emotional anger, and a failed marriage, and a subtle but significant build up to a real life campus shooting. The essay weaves together her everyday domestic life, like laundry, caring for the collie, and squirrels in the attic, with her work life at the University of Iowa. The tension builds slowly until we reach the horrifying climax where a mass shooting is happening and she loses her close friend Chris Gertz. So this story, it starts from a normal personal narrative and it intertwines the mundane moments which is caring for her dog, talking to the estranged husband, and there are some cosmic reflections on plasma, space, and there is references to the physics journal, etc. Then the story's tension is subtly building later. And the final scenes reflect on grief, memory, and emotional suspension, which reflects or which is paralleling the concept of plasma in between. You will notice how her emotional state, where she loses all her emotional supports even in a house and in her professional space, and these kinds of emotional state is mirrored in plasma, the fourth state of matter, which is energetic but static. When we are looking into the themes, the most obvious theme is grief and loss. She loses so many people, so many things in her life, especially her dog at home. She had a failing marriage, so she lost her husband, her emotional connections, and eventually her colleagues on a mass shooting. The disintegration of stability is seen in her both personal and literal destruction of her work environment. The isolation is emotional. She's surrounded by people, but she feels deeply alone. Violence and innocence contrast in a way a peaceful routine is disrupted by senseless horror. Because from the beginning itself, we can see that the narrative itself is mundane and it is referring to the same things over and over. But then by the end of the narrative, there is a climax where a mass shooting happens, so many chaotic events happens. So violence and innocence contrast in the way a peaceful routine is disrupted by senseless horror. Finally, there is a philosophical element, the nature of reality, where the cosmic and personal spaces blur. Ultimately, the truth is a blur. So these themes aren't just listed, they are certainly threaded throughout the piece, often through symbols and metaphors. When we go into searching the poetic devices that are used in this script, that are used in this narrative, we can see that Joanne Beard's language is incredibly poetic. Even though she is writing non-fiction, the language is too much poetic and it is too much attractive, embellished with poetic pieces. So first of all, let's break down some of her literary devices and study what are they. First of all, there is imagery. The Milky Way is a long smear on the sky, like something erased on a blackboard. Look at the imagery. This is a vivid visual imagery that is used in the beginning of the chapter. And it not only describes the sky, but it connects to the narrator's state of mind. Then comes the metaphor. Metaphor is the ultimate poetic device used in the chapter. Plasma. So she says plasma is a place of stillness. The plasma is a place of stillness. And this becomes a metaphor of her suspended emotional state. She's in a suspended emotional state, and the metaphor of plasma becomes a metaphor for her place of stillness. Then comes the symbolism, where the old dog represents mortality, enduring love, and slow loss. Then comes juxtaposition, means keeping together, keeping side by side. So we can see that there is a quiet rhythm for her life in the beginning, which is sharply contrasted with a sudden chaotic, violent shooting in the climax. Then we can see the repetition, like I fix the leg, rolls over and sleeps. So these kinds of phrases are repeated. So it shows routine and emotional fatigue. And even you can find your favorite examples from the text by reading it, and you can even explain how it works emotionally or symbolically. So the metaphor of plasma. Metaphor of plasma is a very much important topic while dealing with the chapter, because continuous questions, repeated questions are coming from this portion. What is the metaphor of plasma? Describe about the metaphor of plasma. So you have to just think that plasma, it is the fourth state of matter, and which is considered different from solids, liquids and gases, and which is often seen in things like lightning or sun. But here it is not just a scientific term. It is a major metaphor in the essay. As the fourth state of matter, it exists between forms. It is energetic, but it is unstable. Joanne Beard's life is in a kind of a plasma pose, a quiet, suspended state before everything breaks apart. It mirrors her grief, her disconnection from the reality, and her inability to move forward. The metaphor deepens the emotional resonance and ties her personal story to the cosmic scale. So think about it. Connecting the personal story to a cosmic scale. And this is a great example of how science can be used symbolically in literature, which means science and literature are not two different things. Both of them are focusing on the same point, conveying scientific ideas and developing scientific timber through narratives. That's what the scientific narratives or literature is doing. So using the metaphor of plasma as a whole body of the narrative in order to communicate the emotional space the narrator is in. So that's what we can see here. Now let's talk about the characters. So Joanne Beard herself is not just the character, but a character navigating emotional collapse. And we have Chris, who is more than just a colleague, and he is a symbol of intellectual and emotional stability. Chris is a symbol of intellectual and emotional stability because whenever she's talking to him about her marriage breaking apart and all, we can see that he's not breaking apart or he's not breaking down or anything. He maintains an emotional stability over there. Then comes Collie, her dog, which is a central character, and Collie is a companion of her, a symbol of loyalty. Usually dogs are considered as symbol of loyalty, and she is a silent witness to Beard's disintegration. Next comes Ganglu. Ganglu is a shooter. Okay, he's the person who is killing all the colleagues, and it is almost like a ghost-like figure in the story until the end. And he is representing hidden rage and violence. Finally, the estranged husband. It is a shadow presence, like he's calling but never connecting, representing the emotional abandonment. Now let's focus on the tone and narrative structure of the narrative. And so while noticing the tone, it is poetic and melancholic. Melancholic means sad, with gentle humor that makes the eventual tragedy even more jarring. The structure isn't linear. It moves between personal anecdotes. Anecdotes mean stories, philosophical thoughts, and mundane tasks. This creates a slow build-up that makes the climax hit harder. Also, she uses foreshadowing subtly. Remember the ticking clocks, the references to time, and the emotional detachment all hint at the looming tragedy without making it obvious. So, to conclude, the fourth state of matter is a deeply moving piece. It doesn't just tell a story, it makes us feel the fragility of life, how fragile our life is. Beard's poetic style, it is combined with the real life horror, and this is what makes this essay unforgettable. She is just narrating her personal memories uh, in a poetic way, and it becomes so connected with our daily life. It can communicate how the real life horror can surpass the imaginary horror. And her use of plasma as metaphor, her quiet narrative style, and her layered symbolism, all this gives us a lot to reflect on, especially the use of plasma as a metaphor. And I hope this helps you see how non-fiction can be just as artistic and powerful as fiction or poetry. Usually we will see non-fiction as something, some boring genre, but here we can see that non-fiction can also be interesting and artistic, just like how a fictional novel or a poetry looks like. So that's all for today, and thank you.